made today's resolution resolved when the United States private ownership of handguns ought to be banned. Observation 1. Just laws used or threatened force against citizens when those citizens violate the rights of their fellows. Observation 2. A free society is predicated on the fundamental equality of each individual regardless of social status before the law. My value is justice. My value criterion is respect for property rights. So, whichever side best upholds property rights should win the round. This is necessarily so because framework 1, property rights are how we know what the word fair means. Fairness itself supervenes upon the property rights. Fairness is predicated upon property rights. Consult 2014E. The reason property rights are more fundamental than a concept upon which aggression depends is that the only reason that there is a need for property rights is the possibility of conflict, and this arises only because we live in a world of scarce, frivolous resources. As Marxist explains, human acts which means to employ certain scarce means to achieve certain chosen ends. Framework 2, property rights are the only means to determine justice. Consult 2014A. As an example, if I hit you, it is aggression because you own your own body. If I take an apple from you, it is aggression only if you own the apple. If it is my apple and I am retrieving it from the thief, the act of force used to take it back is not aggression. We cannot determine whether given apparent border crossing is invasion or theft or trespass or aggression unless we first identify who the owner of the contested resource is. Contention 1. Affirming means voting in favor of enslaving one class of citizens. Consult 2014B. People fight over scarce resources. Disagreement over religion may be the reason for the fight, but the fight is always conducted with physical force, mediated by causal means. To physically control others' bodies or own resources. For example, A may tell B to change to A's religion or face death. The fight here is over who gets to control B's body. When the state threatens to jail people for disobeying laws, the state is asserting an ownership claim over its citizens' bodies. So, therefore, my opponent in the app is misreading where the causes of oppression is. So obviously we need to prioritize the protection of rights, or else people who are being oppressed will continue to be oppressed as individuals because their individual rights are being broken and freely. Because if we don't protect rights, and that will be able to happen.
Additionally, they fail to establish who these dominant elite or oppressed groups are.
Okay. Additionally, they fail to establish who the dominant elites are. Okay. Contention 2, to argue in favor of violence in response to that which is not aggression is to argue in favor of aggression. Consult 2014C. What this all means is that in the eyes of libertarians, anyone who argues for the state is arguing for aggression, and therefore for injustice. One can favor the state, but he cannot justify it. It is easier to commit murder than to justify it. Likewise, as we libertarians see it, any claim in favor of the law that prohibits or violent action is response to. Any action that is itself not aggression is itself unjust and aggression. In other words, force may legitimately be used against others only in response to aggression. If it is leveled against someone for any other reason, it is unjust aggression itself. Therefore, this is basically saying that if an individual is not in any way doing something wrong or to inflict violence against another person, then if another person is to inflict violence on that person which has not done anything, then that would be considered aggression. And this relates because if the state or government comes to retrieve an individual's gun when that individual has not done anything wrong with that gun or broken the law with that gun, then the state and government is inflicting aggression towards that individual. Contention 3, my opponent is not advocating for a diminishment in gun violence. He's advocating for systemizing and institutionalizing it such that one class of person may commit such violence upon another without any repercussions. Police domestic violence nearly twice average rate. LEOs are the least qualified to possess handguns. Fagan 2012. Law enforcement officers beat their wives or girlfriends at nearly double the rate of the rest of the population, and trying to control that is not only difficult for the victims, but potentially deadly, experts say. The trouble lies in the very nature of police work. One of the hallmarks of a good cop is to radiate authority and control. When the misuse happens, it's hard to report it because the victim has to go up against a man and his agency. The San Francisco sheriff charged Friday with 3 misdemeanor counts connected with accusations that he abused his wife is new to the badge. But he graduated from the City Police Academy in 1996 and spent 9 years as an armed investigator for the District Attorney Office. Basically, this is saying that the government or state agents that come in the form of police, they're not fit to handle handguns or these weapons, and
testify.
And this relates back to people being oppressed, because if my opponent's saying that we should be able to allow so that the people who are marginalized or oppressed are lessly so. This contradicts, though, because if you take away the guns, you're taking the only means they have to protect themselves from being oppressed, by namely police. Okay.
And you're stealing those means from them with violence.
Exactly, by force. In order to win this round, AF must account for the simple reality that all of the solvency he claims is contingent upon our legitimizing the murder and imprisonment of millions of innocent people. To vote for my opponent is to vote for someone whom proposes to commit aggression. Regardless of framework preference judge, we're all opposed to unjustified aggression, I should hope. Consell 2014D. Anyone arguing in favor of any form of aggression, especially institutionalized aggression in the form of state legislation, is simply wrong. So the question is whether a given law or proposed law or use of force is aggression or not. It is just or not. And because aggression itself depends on a more fundamental allocation of property rights, the real question is always this. For any particularly resource, which of two more rivalrous, has the better claim? Only libertarianism consistently answers this question in accordance with original appropriation, contract, and restitution/rectification. All other political philosophies deviate in some way from this answer and thus propound rules which the libertarian sees as unjust because the rules propose to commit rather than respond to aggression. To the question, who has the right to control that person's body, the libertarian answer is he does. On to the counterplan. So if my opponent wishes to deny any of this, then he'll have to explain how affirming is preferable to the neg counterplan. Namely, the United States federal government should ban the firing of handguns in the commission of a crime. We prevent all the harms of the act without imposing any mandate to act. My opponents might point out that banning gun use in criminal activity won't actually stop people, but then making gun ownership into a criminal activity won't actually stop people either. And so the act is saying, well then, let's force them at gunpoint and lock them in cages and beat them. Thank you. Please vote nay.
Look at my beautifully taken notes. They started beautiful, and
Alright,
then I realized I was going too slow.
Alright, that was spectacular. Those, you know what those were? Those were sweet, sweet words of truth. That's what those were. That was truth. Truth being spoken.